To order. It's Monday, November 24th. We're in the administration building at 12121 West North Avenue. It's a meeting of the Wauwatosa School Board. We will begin with a moment of silent reflection, please. Dr. Ertl, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bowden? Here. Mrs. Casey?
Excused.
Mrs. Fee?
Here.
Mr. Croner? Here. Mr. Meyer?
He'll be arriving late.
Mrs. Neufeld?
Here.
Mrs. Randall?
Here. Thank you. First item is public comment on non-agenda items. The members of the Wauwatosa School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of the public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into a debate with a member or members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. If anybody would like to speak about anything that is not on tonight's agenda, you could step forward. Okay, seeing none, thank you. We then will move to our school presentation from Longfellow Middle School. Mr. Carter, would you like to step up and tell us what you're going to be doing and introduce?
I would like to thank the board for inviting us here to do our presentation. This evening we have for you the Whiz Kids. This is completely a student-started and initiated. They found someone that could work with them in a group, and now we have almost 50 students that participate during their lunch hour working on things like coding, city planning, computer usage. It's basically a safe place for them to work on problem solving and using a variety of digital tools. And the great thing about this is it is completely generated by the students. It's something they wanted to do. During my time visiting them, it's amazing what they can do and what I can't do. So they are outstanding. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to the Whiz Kids, and they're going to talk to you about what the program is and explain some of the things they do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Also, they have Mr. Henderson with him, the club supervisor and the 6th grade STEM teacher.
We are Whiz Kids. Whiz Kids is a club on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Tuesdays and Thursdays. Everyone loves Whiz Kids. It teaches students how to create things that will change the world. Coding or computer programming is what Whiz Kids revolves around. Coding is where you program a computer with commands like you would do so a dog. Computer programming can change the world. You can direct traffic and create applications that many people will use. Mark Zuckerberg, professional coder, has created Facebook in his basement with code.
This is what other people say about coding.
Here we are, 2013. We all depend on technology to communicate, to bank, and none of us know how to read and write code.
The first program I wrote asked things like, what's your favorite color? Or how old are you?
I wrote a program to play tic-tac-toe.
I first learned how to make a green circle and a red square appear on the screen.
You're just trying to make something, trying to transfer something from your mind to the computer or to a tablet. It's an experience.
The whole limit in the system is just that there just aren't enough people who are trained and have these skills today.
The programmers of tomorrow are the wizards of the future. You know, you're going to look like you have magic powers compared to everybody else.
Great coders are today's rock stars. That's it.
Robotics is using programming to do things like get the robot to follow a line, pick up and move objects, throw a ball into a goal, or even dance. You can use coding to repair a computer or to make an app. Many of the top paying jobs involve coding. Coding is beneficial to everyone.
Makerspaces. Makerspaces are basically a physical space where people can come together to share resources and ideas. WizKids is a makerspace because all of us come together to work on, coding, virtual city design, Lego robotics, and we share ideas. We have access to Chromebooks and laptops in our classroom, and we are allowed to create and share our resources. Makerspaces are important for students because it provides us with an opportunity to creatively collaborate with technology, and we experience self-directed learning while working with others.
I'm going to be focusing on what we do in WizKids. So first of all, we do coding and programming, which is what most people do. It's what WizKids is mostly all about. And we code and program. We learn how to make video games, like draw pictures. And then once you're done with learning how to code, you move on to robotics. And that is where you can code and program a robot to do simple commands, such as following a line across a room and stuff like that. Then my next point is virtual city design and planning. We do SimCity, which is a virtual city that you are in charge of, and you have to take care of profits. You have natural disasters to stop, and you have to keep dinosaurs from destroying your city. And that's only real in SimCity, so.
Sure.
We can create anything you can imagine and more with just a laptop and a few robots. Video games, pictures, robots that follow commands, cities with Godzilla rating, and more. You can let your imagination run wild without worrying what other people think. My last point is access to STEM. I applied to STEM, but I didn't make it, and I really wanted it. I was very disappointed when my mom told me the bad news. But then WizKids came around, and it was a way for me to experience things and that I thought only kids in STEM could do. And I was the first person to sign up. I was so excited, and I want other kids who don't go to Longfellow and didn't make it into STEM to be able to experience this as well, because I enjoy WizKids. It's one of the highlights of my day. I go at least twice a week. And I feel like other kids would enjoy this as well as I do. Thank you.
Okay, so I remember Mr. Henderson making the announcement about this, and I at first had thought that it was a great idea, but my friend had kept telling me about like Lego robotics. I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't think of going until my friend my best friend who is in Lego robotics, she persuaded me to go, and I did, and I accidentally missed the first day because I couldn't find the door, and I came in and I said I missed the first day, so I started doing what the other kids were doing, and it was really fun because we learned how to make the the zombie from Plants vs. Zombie move across the screen just so it can eat the plant. It was really fun. So I'm gonna say about it's so fun. What I mean by it is that you get to program robots that normally you wouldn't be able to do. You can't just buy robots at the Lego store and build them at your home. You have to get permission, I've heard. So then when you program them, you get to know how they work instead of having to sign up for like things like Lego robotics. I met a lot of new people, like all the STEM people. A couple people I knew, but some of them, like, I had thought about STEM, but I couldn't get in. So when I was gonna do it, I decided, like, I met all the people and they were really nice, and they all had the kind of the same interests. They all played sports, well, most of them, and they all like had this connection that I felt that I had with them. There's no club that's really like this one because we get to program robots, we get to like make video games, we get to do things that other kids normally wouldn't be able to do if they weren't in STEM. So it's just a really kind of experience that everyone should be involved with. And by everyone, I mean adults and kids, not just kids like in one grade, but the whole school, maybe even the teachers, like learn how to do this kind of things.
WizKids is during lunch, so it's not like being in class. WizKids is held on Monday, Wednesdays, and on Tuesdays, Thursdays. It is not held on Fridays. In WizKids, you get to meet new friends, and you can meet friends from your class. In WizKids, it is fun because you get to code and be with friends in a social environment. Thank you for letting us be the WizKids Club because we learn a lot from coding. Here's a video that it is about what kids from our class thought about WizKids.
Ethan, so you're in WizKids right now. What are you doing WizKids?
So why do you enjoy coming into WizKids?
Well, it's a chance to learn about robotics and programming and get some work done. And have fun.
Do you have fun here? I was going to ask, why is it fun, Maggie?
Because you can kind of do like anything in the section of programming and you can kind of like explore all that. Try it out.
And you get to hang out with your friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so fun.
It's so, oh my goodness. Thank you, girls. Say, what are you guys working on?
I just made the city to make it so that it sells.
What'd you say?
I made the city so it sells.
It sells?
Yeah, so it sells like ores and coal.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you need to, because Jordan, your city needs to make money, right?
Yeah.
So you're providing income for your city? Awesome. What is the program you're using?
SimCity.
SimCity?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about SimCity, George?
Well, SimCity is basically a city simulator. You have to make a city, you have to make it efficient, you have to make people live there, and make sure that satisfy their demands.
Got it.
And also you have to have power, water, and sewage.
A lot of things you have to consider when planning a city, huh?
Yeah.
And so you just started WizKids. What do you think of WizKids so far?
I think it's pretty fun.
Why do you like it?
Because I can play SimCity, even if I do have SimCity at my house. Some people who don't want to play it badly, they can just go to WizKids and there's 10 computers that they can play on.
But you have it at home, so what brings you here then?
Because I think it's fun with other people.
Got it.
Other than playing by yourself.
Yep. See?
Helping other people with their cities.
And you help people with their cities then, and you interact? That's great. 1, 2, 3.
Very nice.
I'll carry you home tonight. We are young, so let's set the world on fire.
Thank you.
I didn't want to talk, but I just want to introduce the girls because they're so fabulous. So we've got Olive here. Say hi, Olive. Hi. Sienna. Hi. We've got Sid. Hey. Vienne. Hello. Dua. Hi. And in the back there's Becca. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and come and check us out anytime.
Absolutely. So, board members, questions or comments on the presentation? Mrs. Fee?
Thank you. First off, thank you all for coming. It was a very nice presentation. And my first comment is that it's great to see so many girls involved in this. We hear all the time about how there's not enough women and girls going into engineering, and it's great to see all of you here tonight. I also heard that a couple of you aren't in STEM, but of the rest of you, how many are in STEM? All right, 4 out of 6. Would you say that that's a fair proportion of how many kids are in Whiz Kids? It's about 2/3, 1/3? Okay. Thank you very much again. It was a great presentation, and I'm glad that there is this opportunity for those who weren't able to access the STEM program to have these same activities. So, thank you.
Mrs. Muehlfeld?
Thank you. Lovely presentation. It was just great. And you probably helped put together the video too, and maybe some music, and that's really neat. I have a question for you. You eat your lunch as part of this club?
We come to Whiz Kids with our lunches, and we sort of like just eat our lunches as we're coding. Some kids like will eat their lunch and then code and sort of. So yeah, you have lunch there.
So you don't have to go through the cafeteria line?
You get a pass from Mr. Henderson.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So that. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're working it out, and it's it's something that you want to do. And if you had a preference, maybe would you do this after school or at a different time during the day?
I like it at lunch because everyone's going to be able to make it, because a lot of kids have like soccer practice or other sports or other lessons or other things to do after school. So I feel like lunch is just the best time for everyone who wants to do it to be able to do it.
Or as a regular class, right? Well, obviously we're not there yet, but thank you very much, and it certainly is something to think about, the interest that you all have, and really what benefit it brings, and for the parents who are supporting it as well. So thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Buden.
Thanks again for your presentation. Couple questions. Is this designated for any particular grade?
We have 6th grade, and obviously that's the one that we're in, but there is also a 7th grade Whiz Kids. I don't know if there's an 8th grade Whiz Kids yet.
I don't think there is one yet. I'm going with yet because I don't think that there will, if not yet, eventually be an 8th grade Whiz Kids.
But the 7th graders enjoy it as well.
Thank you. Second question is, do you have an agenda? You know what that means? Do you know what's going to happen when you show up? Or is it an ongoing, continuous?
You have a choice of what you can do.
You don't have to do one thing. It's not. It's sort of just what you feel like doing when you get there. You don't have to. The teacher Mr. Henderson isn't going to tell you, okay, come on, it's time to code now. You can code, or maybe you have done some coding at home, so you're done. So now you can work on programming a robot. It's not totally. It's not a schedule on what you're doing there.
And also, in STEM, we are working on a Future City competition, and SimCity was a part of that. So we would have lots of practice or time to work on our virtual cities, city layout, city planning, and so it was a really great place for our groups to gather to work on it.
Thank you. Great job.
Anyone else? Okay, I would also like to thank you. That was great. I really, really appreciate you coming here and talking about it. I have a couple questions about, are there enough computers for all of you?
Yes, because we have.
We can always use more.
We have a cart of Chromebooks and a cart of laptops.
Okay.
And there's about 30 computers in each one. So
actually, no, there are only 10 laptops, and there are 30 Chromebooks. So as
Mhm.
City for our Future City project need them.
Okay.
That hasn't quite been a problem since not everyone's always using a Chromebook or a laptop. I mean, there are a lot of people like doing robotics. There's some people who are just hanging out.
Mm-hmm. So you manage with what you have, but more would be fun, right? More. Yeah. Okay. A lot of you talked about the robots that you programmed.
I think in like the second or third week of WizKids, we got them,
Mhm.
and everyone wanted to work on them. And first we had to build them, and everyone really enjoyed that. And then we got to the coding and programming of them. So making them move and making them pick up objects, and everyone really enjoys working with the robots, even though like only a few people can use them at a time.
Okay. So, what's the next step with these robots?
I think the next step is going to make them be able to do more things than just move around and pick up things. And we use this special website. It's like this Lego Mindstorm where you can use the commands and make them move and spin and grab things. And there's like some specific people that like really like to use them, even though everyone always likes using them and making them do
Okay.
Maybe I could just.
Yeah, please.
So we had two EV3 Lego Mindset Systems kits, and so we just went with two. It's hard to run some of the challenges that I'd like to do with the club. The whole Lego Mindstorm systems are kind of they foster creativity, so problem solving and challenges. If you just the first Lego Leagues do a lot with here's a challenge for today, let's get teams together. But again, if you're looking at building two systems, that's hard to do. So right now it's just exposure. Let's get you kids programming. Let's get you coding. Let's teach them how to use
Mm-hmm.
computer programming and robotics and stuff like that. But then if we had more, we would definitely be able to have teams and competitions and really get that the ideals of the makerspace and that first Lego League into the WizKids. But with two systems is hard.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Has everybody who wanted to join been able to join? Have you had to turn anybody away?
Well, if you want to sign up, there was a day during lunch when Mr. Henderson came with the sign up sheets.
Actually, there was a whole week where you could sign up.
Yeah, but there are some kids who didn't really want to do it then, but now after all their friends telling them about how awesome it is, because it's really awesome, everyone wants to join.
Mhm.
So they'll have Mr. Henderson will have those kids come down to his room, and then they sign up, and he'll give them a pass after they sign up, and then they can come the next day or the day after.
Okay. Could you say it a little bit louder, hon?
He gives them an option. Like today, there was a new kid. He came in and he said, "I'd like to join." And Mr. Henderson asked him if there was a day. So there's like a date availability, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Yeah, because I wonder if you maybe know some of your friends that you think would enjoy it, but they might be a little nervous, that they aren't in STEM or they haven't done this type of thing before. Have you brought in your friends? Have you talked to some of your friends that?
We have brought
Okay.
we've brought friends in, and most of them really seem to enjoy it. And even if you are coming late and people are already working on things, everyone's really open to letting you share with them and helping you learn what they have already learned how to do.
Okay.
As far as coding, robotics, and city, anything you want to do.
I don't think anyone has ever like quit WizKids or like ever like stopped coming.
There was actually only one person. that was because he just didn't get along with the people there. It's not like because it was fun.
Well, that happens, yeah. That can happen. It just sounds wonderful. I mean, beyond, the technology piece of it, obviously you guys are collaborating, you're reaching out to other kids. There's so many pluses here. And Mr. Henderson, it's really a gift to have you leading this effort.
The kids, going back to what Mr. Carter said, this is all student-driven.
I know.
Interest.
I know.
Mr. Carter approved it, so my role here is just to try to keep them safe
Yeah.
that much. And so that's really all I do.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be in there during the lunch hour and answering the questions. And it sounds like what Mr. Bodden was asking, there's a menu of things that they get to choose as far as that agenda question. So thank you again so much. It's so helpful to have you come and talk about this and share your excitement about it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, great. Okay, it's always kind of a letdown after these great presentations to move into the consent agenda. Huh? No. You didn't let me finish. I said into the consent agenda. Okay, so the next item is to approve the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members would like to remove for separate discussion or action? Okay, seeing none, is there any community comment on the consent agenda? Okay.
Need a motion? Move
Pardon
to
me?
approve?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you. And
Move to approve?
a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, is there any community comment on the consent agenda? Okay. Dr. Ertl, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Mrs. Fee?
Yes.
Mr. Croner?
Yes.
Mrs. Muehlfeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes. Thank you. Our first action item then from the Teaching and Learning Department. Mr. Croner, please.
Thank you. It is recommended that the school board approve 3 new theater courses: Acting 2, Technical Theater 2, and Topics in Theater for the 2015-2016 school year as presented and discussed at the November 10th board meeting, and I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing from administration to add to our last discussion? Okay. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Mrs. Muehlfeld.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I received a letter from one parent who was here on the evening of our presentation, who wasn't able to speak because she had come after the regular topic was presented. But just to say, she has several children in the theater and was very supportive of adding these classes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, is there any community comment on the new theater courses? Okay, seeing none, Dr. Ertl, please.
Mr. Bowden? Yes. Mrs. Fee?
Yes.
Mr. Croner?
Yes.
Mrs. Muehlfeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes, thank you. Our reports, Teaching and Learning Department, Mrs. Kwiatkowski, for an exciting presentation of revisions to Policy 5113, Public School Open Enrollment.
You know when you're presenting after something called Whiz Kids, that is
I
just
know.
an activity to start with. Just pull this up here.
With staff.
Okay. We'll convene again.
Tonight, I'm going to share with you the recommendations for the revision to our policy 5113, which is our open enrollment policy. And these recommendations are to bring the Wauwatosa School District in line with new legislation, new statute around open enrollment. So these are most of what's in here. I'll walk through the policy and the changes, kind of highlighting what we've changed and letting you know some of the big differences that will impact the board. Just to kind of timeline how things have happened, state statute actually changed in 2012 is when state statute revised the open enrollment policy, and some of the changes that were put into place in 2012, districts across the state have been required to act upon. More recently, the Department of Public Instruction aligned their administrative rules and provided some guidance for school districts in regard to recommendations for revisions to the policy. And just to highlight a couple of those things, if you look at the slide right now, it talks about school boards. One of the big changes in the policy is that school boards are required to vote on spaces during the month of January. There's a lot of changes in how we'll be approaching that as a school board. And then also DPI in the legislation so that all school districts need to have the new policies in place by February 2nd, 2015, because that's when the open enrollment window opens. So that's our timeline as far as moving forward with this policy. Just want to highlight some of the things that we did in regards to the process of going through our policy. When the guidance came out from the Department of Public Instruction toward the end of the summer, first thing we did is we looked at our old policy to see what we currently had in there. There were also some resources shared with us by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards to provide some guidance. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time looking at the state statute itself and trying to interpret that and incorporate that into our policy revisions. We also looked at some open enrollment data and how that's impacted the Wauwatosa School District over the past years. We drafted some revisions, and then we've also have met and reviewed our policy revisions with legal counsel. We also consulted with the Department of Public Instruction. So in summary, some of the additions and changes to the policy are actually things that previously were in administrative guidelines. So as I walk through my presentation, what I'll do is I'll highlight significant changes, as well as, like I said, changes that you, as a school board, you'll have to act on in this coming open enrollment year. If you look at page 2 of the policy revision that was shared with you last week, one of the changes is that if you're going to designate the authority of administering open enrollment, you have to have that in policy. So the revision to our policy is that we have a statement that we're going to designate the authority to the superintendent and or the designee of the superintendent. The other thing about designation of authority, the only thing that the school board cannot designate is the actual determination of space that occurs in January. On page 2, we made some changes to our procedures to receive and process open enrollment.
Excuse me,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we looking at the one that says draft on it, or are we looking at the
We're looking at
red
the clean
line?
one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, the clean one, not the lined one.
The final one?
Yes, the final one.
Okay,
I
thanks.
apologize.
No, that's okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
On page 2, if you look at page 2, we have in the statute what you have to have in there is districts have to have procedures to receive and date and process open enrollment applications. That's not very different. We've tweaked some of that language. The big difference is that districts are now required to have procedures to determine how they're going to determine space for students with disabilities. This was not in previous statute. It wasn't in previous policy. Our practice, we did this, but now it's actually required to be in policy. So what we did to the policy in our revisions is we added details to kind of describe some of the procedures we use. We added dates from the statute. The actual open enrollment window changed in 2012. Open enrollment used to be students could apply for open enrollment during the month of February. Now it's actually extended through April, so we put the new dates in. And then we also added some statements regarding our procedures for processing applications for students with disabilities. And you can find those are, if you're in the policy, it's on page 2 where we talk about determining space for students with disabilities. The other thing required in the policy is some information around waiting lists. In our old policy, there was maybe 2 sentences that basically said that we would have a waiting list if we didn't have enough space. So we had to add some additional language talking about our procedures for establishing a waiting list and then moving students on or moving students off the waiting list. One of the big changes in this year in the state statute that was revised in 2012 was some of the practices around sibling preference, as well as students currently attending under tuition waiver, or under students who are currently attending the school district through open enrollment or under tuition waiver. Historically, in our old policy, school districts could grant preference to those populations. New statute requires that preference is given to students that are currently attending the school district, as well as siblings of students who are currently attending open enrollment. So in our revised policy, what we did with that is we looked at our past practice. We've always guaranteed space to those students currently attending through open enrollment and tuition waiver. So that language is now in our policy because it's a practice that we've always used. And there's some information I'll share later about why there's an additional advantage as to why we would guarantee the space in our policy. And then we added the language about sibling preference. We didn't guarantee siblings, but our recommendation is that we just provide preference to our siblings of current students. A new requirement in the policy, the statute requires that districts have to have procedures for accepting and rejecting open enrollment application, and this is always determined by space. Space is the big factor that you use to determine if you're going to accept a student or reject a student. Our old policy had some language but wasn't very specific, so in our revised policy we're adding some additional language for determining space available based on some of our past practices that we've used as a district, based on some statutory requirement. And then we've added some language in the policy about our procedures for rejecting application. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the space process, because that's the biggest, the space issue is probably the most significant change that the board will have to address in January. If you recall, in the past, when we would make our recommendations for space for open enrollment, we would come to you and just share class size, and we would say, we're going to use these class size numbers to determine if there is space available, and as a board you would vote on that. There's some new statutory requirement around boards and their process for determining space. It's much more specific. So first of all, it requires that all boards act on it during the month of January. Can't act on it before, can't act on it after. That's a new requirement. It also says that boards need to identify the number of spaces available for each grade in general education. So historically, when we used our class size, we just said, grades, kindergarten, JK and SK, grades 1 through 5. Now the board will actually make a determination for each grade, stating in grade 3, there are this many spaces available. In grade 4, there are this many spaces available. And we'll have, I have some information sharing with you what we put into policy to help you, guide you as a school board. And then finally, what's different is that the board needs to identify the number of spaces available for services in special education. We have done that as a district based on some previous guidance that we had received from the Department of Public Instruction. It was never required in statute. Now it's required in statute that boards do that. So as far as our recommendations, policies have to include in the policy how they would determine space. So the recommendation that we have in the policy is the class sizes that we've used in the past. We've left those unchanged. For kindergarten, JK and K5, use a class size of 18. For grades 1 through 5, use a class size of 20. And then 6 through 12, use a class size of 23. That's unchanged. What is changed is some of the stuff around special education. In the past, we used student-to-teacher ratio. Based upon guidance from legal consult, their recommendation is that we use for special education space, we use the DPI recommended caseload guidelines to determine space available. So this will be a new procedure for us that we'll be using this year for determining space available in open enrollment. When I spoke with legal counsel, their reason for recommending that is that there's been some situations where families have appealed the rejection, and the Department of Public Instruction has upheld the district's determination based on their application of the DPI guidelines. I also had the opportunity on Friday to speak with a district that actually is using the DPI guidelines, and talked to him a little bit about how they applied that in the appeal process, and using administrative guidelines where you can develop administrative guidelines that kind of align with your district practices. So once we pass this policy, there will be some administrative guideline work that will have to be done to help us utilize this document. In our recommendation and in our policy, it's our recommendation that we allow the current students to be admitted to the district. Like I said earlier, that's always been our past practice. And there's also some timeline implications that if we wouldn't allow them to remain, that we wouldn't be able to accept or act on any of those applications of our current students until June. And I'll share that with you later. In our policy, in our determining space, we said that we would allow for siblings to have preference. And then we also added in our space that there would be no maximum class size for grades in the Wauwatosa virtual school, but we would apply special education space guidance to the virtual school. And I'll explain to you a little bit later in our rationale for that as far as taking full advantage of the virtual school enrollment opportunities for students outside of our district. I just wanted to share with you, because the DPI special education's caseload calculation is new for a new system that we'll be using here. So essentially what the Department of Public Instruction does is every student is counted as a 1 if you're a student without a disability, and then they give you a weight based on your disability and the significance of your disability. So students are weighted based on the services they receive. So a student could be weighted as a 1.5 if they're a student with a learning disability that receives minimal services, or they could be weighted as a 3.3 if they're a student with a significant cognitive disability. So you take a caseload, this is just an example where you would have 6 students at a 2.1, and then 2 students at a 2.0, and 4 students at a 2.0, so your total is 24.6. That's the point calculation that you would apply to that. DPI also in their guidance talks about, the document was actually written in 2001, and so it said if you use inclusion, you can consider applying 10% for inclusion. So taking their model, if we would apply that, we would actually come up with a score of 27.06. And according to the DPI guidelines, the optimal caseload is no greater than 26, therefore that you would say no space. Again, this is DPI's guidance, and their reason for the caseload of 26 is they say the average caseload, or the average class size is 26. Well, we know it's different than that in Wauwatosa, so that's where our administrative guidelines would talk to us, because we wouldn't want to have a disproportionate amount of students with disabilities. So we would take this model of calculating it, and then in our administrative guidelines apply Wauwatosa class size averages for determining it. So we'll work through that once the process, once the policy is approved, but I just wanted to share that with you to give you some background information. In addition to space, there's some new changes. I talked about some of these things a little bit earlier. The statute went into 2012, and one of the changes in the statute was that there's an alternative application window where families can actually apply for open enrollment under certain conditions outside of the regular period. That was new in 2012. We've been doing that. We've been processing application, but our policy had no language about it. So we've added the procedures for alternative application for non-resident students as well as for our resident students. We've added that to our policy. In August, you may recall, I came to you with the open enrollment policy to add some language around habitual truant, or students who are habitually truant. There's some allowable reasons that a school district can dismiss or terminate someone's open enrollment status. So what we did with the revised policy is we've added those allowable reasons for termination of open enrollment. We did keep the habitual truancy stuff the same as what you approved in August, and the reason we wanted that in our policy in August was so that we could apply it at the semester if we so choose. So what happened in the policy is we kept the habitual truancy language that was added in August, and then we added those other statutory allowable reasons to our current policy. One of those that we didn't have in previous administrative guidelines was failure to participate, and that's language that would allow you to terminate someone's open enrollment status from the virtual school. So instead of using attendance, they use the word participation. In our old policy, we did not have information about resident open enrollment application process. So we added some language for how we will process our resident students who apply for open enrollment in other districts. And then the final big change for the policy is, first of all, we added language about reviewing the policy annually. This is not a statutory requirement. The statute does not require school districts to review policy annually. The only thing that they require school boards to do annually is determine space in January. However, due to the volume of open enrollment applications that we receive annually and the potential impact on the district, it would be beneficial for us to look at this policy annually, really to determine if there's any necessary changes and make sure that we're minimizing liability to the district and allow for the maximum benefit for potential applicants. So we're recommending that we would have an annual review in our policy. And then finally, just some additional notes about the statute. Like I said, that timeline for the application, the alternative application that went into, it was written in statute in 2012. We've been using it since 2013. So it's not been in our policy, but because it was required by state statute, it's something that we've been utilizing since it's gone into statutory language. I talked a little bit earlier about guaranteeing space. And right now, our practice has always been that students who are currently enrolled in our district are allowed to continue in our district and are guaranteed a space, and they're counted in our current numbers. And our recommendation is to continue this. If we wouldn't include that language in our policy, any students who's currently enrolled here, that's currently enrolled through either open enrollment or on a tuition waiver, we would not be able to accept their application until June. So it potentially could jeopardize a student's participation. In our district, it would limit our ability to accept a student. So our recommendation is that we put that guarantee in our policy. And then I talked a little bit about the language about in the virtual school, saying that we would have unlimited seats. And the reason for this is if we would not include that language, once we start saying no to any students and rejecting applications to any student who would apply through the alternative application period from January until the third Friday in September, we couldn't act on that application. So it would limit our ability to act on alternative application procedures, and quite honestly, a lot of our virtual school students arrive to us through that alternative application period. So we would want to include that language around unlimited space in the virtual school so that not only could we accept students who apply during the regular period, we could act on students who apply during those non-traditional periods versus not being able to accept students till the third Friday in September. And that's the information I have about open enrollment policy.
Thank you. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Muehlfeld?
Well, that was a lot of information.
It sure was.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for waiting for that. I just have a question of how will this affect us? I mean, I can see a couple of different scenarios.
Sure.
What are your thoughts there?
Well, as far as the policy, I mean, a lot of it is driven by statute, so it's really it's good for us to have it in our policy, even though it's required by statute. The recommendation from the attorney is you want your policy to stand up against any appeal. And her recommendation then was to include the language from the statute into our policy so that it's clear for parents who apply, and if a parent appeals, we have a policy that upholds an appeal. As far as any kind of fiscal implications or anything like that, that's really going to happen when we determine space. So how does the policy affect the district? There's some flexibility, obviously, around space. There's the flexibility about whether or not the board chooses to guarantee continuing students. We had a statement in there about the virtual school, but in the end, the big decisions will actually happen in January when the board votes on space available. Does that answer your question?
It's going to create some challenges, though, to
Yes.
determine the number of seats. And if we don't designate the appropriate number of seats, then we've got to wait until later on to accept additional students, and sometimes people make decisions. The later we accept students in specific grade levels, the more difficult it is to fill the openings. So it's going to make it a little bit more challenging.
Okay. Anyone else? I just was going to follow up on that. I'm reading this formula, so we will actually have to come up with a number. Like in January, we'll say in 2015, we will have 10 seats available in the 3rd grade.
Correct.
Wow.
For each grade.
Okay.
That's correct. And as well as
Yeah.
10 seats available in general education and 0 seats available in special education.
In January.
In January.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. My other question was the alternative applications, and one of these is a reference to bullying, a student who was bullied or harassed in their resident district, and it seems very loose. I don't see a definition for bullying or criteria for documenting the bullying and criteria for saying that the resident district didn't.
Sure. If you go to the actual policy, so if you go to the actual policy on page 7, letter C, or letter C talks about, this is what's in the state statute, that this is a reason a family can apply outside during the alternative application. It's a reason that a family can apply using an alternative application. The family can state that the student has been a victim of repeated bullying or harassment, and all the following apply. The students have reported the bullying or harassment to the resident school board, and despite action taken, the repeated bullying and harassment continues. So as a resident school district, a student from Wauwatosa could apply in a different district and say this has happened. It's up to that district to decide how they're going to determine that. From our perspective, with non-resident students, it is a little loose, quite honestly. We can interpret that. I mean, if a resident student applied somewhere else, we could say that that student didn't report it to the school board, therefore will deny the application. We could say, despite action taken, the repeated bullying and harassment continues. We could say that it stopped, and we have evidence to suggest it stopped. Again, you would go through that. Potentially a family could appeal. I don't know if we'd want to do that, but it is loose, Mary Jo. I think that's your point, is that it's kind of loose, and it's literally the language right from the statute.
Okay, so the statute doesn't get any more specific than what we've got in the policy then?
Current interpretation by the DPI doesn't make sense to even be more specific. They will not deny a student the opportunity to attend through open enrollment. They have yet to...
For any reason?
In the best interest,
these alternatives?
These alternative, in the best interest
Okay.
of the child.
Okay.
I think the point is, who's the judge of the best interest of the child? It's the parents, and the parents are making that decision. The DPI has supported that, I believe, in all cases to this point.
Okay. So will you have administrative guidelines that tighten that up a little bit? I mean, that would say, we would contact the home district and get some kind of documentation.
I don't
or
know if we'll put
ask?
that. Those are those decisions that we have to make. I think with the alternative application procedures, part of it is space. I mean, historically, we have not accepted any students through alternative application procedures other than in the virtual school due to space, because typically most of the applications we receive are for middle and high school students, and so they're denied based on space, unless it's a virtual school student.
Okay. But these alternative ones are after that, so they're
Right.
outside of that.
Right, and if we haven't accepted students, like if we said there's no space for those students that applied during the regular period, then there would be no space at the middle school and high school.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, it might be a great option to have that for some kids, but it could also, I think, be misused or overused. If people want to just come to another district.
There certainly is potential for that, or leave the district.
Yeah, I would just hope that we can help those kids that come here,
Mhm.
you know, but anyway, okay. Yeah, I think those were the only questions that I had. So I assume if we, after hearing your presentation and looking this over again before we have an action item on our next agenda, right?
Yes.
Would we contact you?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
So I'm going to go on, if that's okay, to the next one. There's two pieces to that, or am I done with my?
Pardon me?
opening?
Oh, yeah.
I have another one. I have the course options. Is it, everybody ready for me to go forward? Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So course options, policy 5113.01. This used to be part-time open enrollment. It's now known as course options. And as far as course options programs, first of all, this was part of the governor's budget from the 2013-15 state budget bill. That's where this came into play. There is some guidance issued by the Department of Public Instruction this past February. And course options program replaces and expands the part-time open enrollment program. So we've had part-time open enrollment program for as long as we've had open enrollment. This replaces part-time open enrollment. And essentially what it does is it allows a student in public schools to attend courses in other educational institutions while remaining enrolled in their resident district. The big significant changes is that part-time open enrollment was only for high school students, whereas course options is technically available to any student currently enrolled in a public school. And the other big change is that part-time open enrollment only allowed public high school students to attend courses at a non-resident public school district. Course options allows students to attend courses at an educational institution. So we're expanding K through 12, and we're expanding from public schools to educational institutions. As far as the policy that's in front of you is the policy that was presented to us by legal counsel based on their review of statute and their recommendations, and that's what we put into our policy. What's interesting about the policy, there's two big pieces to it. First of all, processing resident applications. So whether the course satisfies the high school requirements, that's part of the language that's in the policy. That's on page 5 of the policy. Sorry. So in the actual statute, it talks about when you're processing it as a resident. So if I'm a resident, we have a resident student that is applying for course options in a different district, it poses a financial obligation to our school district. And in the statute, it talks about whether the course, it says that districts, resident districts can make a determination on whether the course satisfies a high school graduation requirement under section 118.33. Well, if you interpret this, it can basically it eliminates all applications of resident elementary students and middle school students applying for course options outside of our district, and it eliminates that financial obligation, because in the statute it talks about this. So in our conversation with the attorney, she says it's interesting language and it hasn't been challenged yet, but the way that the statute is written, if it talks about fulfilling a high school requirement, none of your classes in elementary or middle school fulfill that requirement. So that's one thing to be aware of. The other piece in the policy that we've included in our policy for our resident applications, there's some language where you're allowed to put some scheduling accommodations into policy, which we've added in ours. It's on the last page it's the last letter H of our policy. It talks about resident students participating in the course option program, that it does not disrupt the educational environment in the district or impede the students' ability to maximize the benefit they receive from the courses that they are attending in the district. The district will not be able to permit resident students to leave district classes early or arrive at district classes late in order to accommodate scheduling conflicts or provide travel time to other educational institutions. So this language really kind of eliminates that opportunity, or could eliminate that opportunity, for a student to take a course option class at another public high school. Universities or tech schools or some, obviously they have evening classes. I think it gives the district some flexibility around making some determinations, because if you have a senior that only needs several classes, you can make that determination about that it doesn't impact their scheduling, their schedule to attend school during the regular school day. So as this is all new and everybody's kind of venturing into this, these are some loopholes that the attorneys have found in regard to processing resident applications. I can honestly say in my years of processing open enrollment applications, we process over 2,000 a year for full-time open enrollment. I've processed only one part-time open enrollment ever. So I don't know if I think this might be a little bit different over time, but the reality is that in my experiences of processing part-time open enrollments, there's only been one resident student that has applied to take a class in a different district in Wauwatosa through the part-time open enrollment process. So those are the two kind of significant changes and things to be, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up here with my slideshow. Those are the two significant things that the attorney pointed out to us to watch for as we implement this policy. And again, we'll have to put some administrative guidelines in place, and I plan on using our legal consult with this because nobody has a whole lot of experience with this, with it being new.
Okay.
I just want to add to that it's not just other school districts, but also it includes technical colleges, other institutes of higher education, so it could be a college course. So it's expanded beyond just if they wanted to go to another public school to take a course. And our gifted and talented coordinator has ran into other districts that have already dealt quite a bit with this course options program change. And it has been utilized probably, if we've only had one part-time, but it's been utilized in other districts already in a different kind of way. And there is also the Department of Public Instruction was recently at a meeting where they said that this may go back to the legislature in January for some reconsideration on some parts of it based on some of the wording, some of the things that are in here. So it does have implications for us monetarily because if a student does want to take a course, we're obligated in many cases if it's college, like for 50% of the tuition for that course. The institution has to waive the other 50% or however they do that. But so it does have a financial obligation if it's utilized. It's like youth options, but it's different than youth options in a couple ways. So I just want you to be aware that there are some potential financial obligations that go with this.
Well, that was going to be my question, if this is what we were calling course or youth options, but it's not. No,
it's not there.
What is different?
Well,
generally.
Well, it's different in that the process is started by the student or the parent starts with the institution of higher education, whereas in youth options, we start the procedure. They would start the procedure, and then they come to us. So they have to first go to that institution. They have to initiate it. They have to work with it, with that institution. They have to apply. They have to get accepted. The 50% of tuition, there's a whole pay grade depending on where they go to school, but for the most part, if it's an institution of higher education, it's like 50%. But we would have to engage with other districts if we had a student that wanted to come here to take something, or if we had a student that wanted to go to another local district and take a course, which we haven't had to do before. I think I have a few notes. Well, it had the elementary middle school component is not youth options. You have to be, I think, 16 years of age, to be able to participate in youth options. So it's different that way. In some ways, it could save us money, I suppose, if you look at it in comparison to youth options. We're paying full tuition. So it's just, there is some things around this that doesn't say, depending on how it's utilized and how much it's utilized, there financially could be some things there.
Okay, Thank you very much. Board members? Questions on this part? Okay. Then, I think you're done. Thank you very much for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Next item in our reports is the AP Capstone Program proposal. Did you want to say anything, or? Pardon? Okay.
No, we just did that one. Sorry.
Yeah, Whiz Kids.
There we go. Okay, good evening. My name is Dave Dettinger, Supervisor of Secondary Ed in the Department of Teaching and Learning, and I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
I'm Chris Lazarski, a social studies and English teacher at Wauwatosa West High School.
And I'm Jean Biebel, English teacher at East High School.
And we're proposing the adoption of the AP Capstone program, which is in fact 2 AP courses, AP Seminar and AP Research. So the AP Capstone program, which is made up of the 2 courses, AP Seminar and AP Research, should replace Honors Challenge Seminar and be implemented as follows: AP Seminar in 2015 and AP Research in 2016. AP Capstone, or APC, in a nutshell, in that course, the students learn rigorous academic practices necessary for college and career success. I didn't put career in there, although in the original material from College Board, they do cite the effect that the course has on the workforce as well. The students will analyze and investigate topics. Those topics are self-chosen. They're chosen collaboratively. They will choose topics for the course. They'll choose topics for their own work. And those are cross-curricular, as you see in the 3rd bullet. So this is the one AP course which is not lodged in a content area as like math or English or world languages, but it's interdisciplinary, so it's cross-curricular. The 2nd bullet, they propose solutions to real-world problems. It's hands-on, it's applicable. And the 4th bullet, they develop evidence-based arguments. So from Common Core standards, from the Next Gen standards, this focus on argument-based work where a student proposes a claim and then gets evidence for that claim and then reasons through that claim with that evidence is a really important cornerstone of AP Capstone, along with it cutting across content areas. Their standards, when we look at their standards, this is for the first of the 2 courses, AP Seminar. They're very similar to many of our benchmarks in terms of the critical thinking. The students understand, they analyze, they look from different perspectives, they synthesize the work that they come across in terms of their research, and they also then collaborate with one another, transform their society, and transmit their knowledge and their understanding. Jean, did you want to talk a little bit about assessments? And the reason we address this is because with College Board and AP courses, the assessment is really an integral part of the course.
So in AP Seminar, there are 3 assessments, 2 of which are scored in the high school and then are uploaded to a digital portfolio, and the scores are then blindly verified by the College Board. And then there's 1 end-of-course written assessment. The first assessment that's in-house is a team project that is broken into multiple parts and includes a presentation, a multimedia presentation that gets uploaded to the digital portfolio. And then the individual assessment is a 2,000-word essay argument. And then the end of the year course does not have a multiple choice section like most AP courses, but instead it's all written. And the first portion is an analysis of an argument. The second one is to evaluate two different arguments that are presented. And then finally, they will present students with four different texts. Thank you. Four different texts. And the students then have to produce an argument of their own utilizing those four texts. And all three of those comprise the score in AP Seminar. And then AP Research the following year is a 5,000 word research paper that is the focus of study throughout the course. And that is, and one thing I failed to say, there is an oral defense portion of the in-house assessments in AP Seminar, and the oral defense is comprised of the teacher posing questions. And then the second year, the AP Research has to have a defense in front of two people that prepare questions. And the AP Research has requires mentoring depending on the topic. And the mentor could be found in-house, but if someone chooses a topic that the AP Research instructor doesn't have deep knowledge of, we could end up finding research mentors within universities, within the community, and the College Board will help facilitate those mentorships if we run into a roadblock.
Typically, an AP test costs a student $89. If a student qualifies because of their economic status, they have that reduced. College Board aggressively is advocating that practice is similar, and they're actually putting some legwork behind that and ensuring that these tests, which cost $139 because of the more involved portfolio system, et cetera, would, if a student qualified, that would be lowered. And they're also looking to create a fund where that would be then covered entirely if a student qualified based on the economics of their home. One reason we're looking at this, I have to say, sort of stepping out of character, I have only worked for Wauwatosa for 2 years. But I've known about the Wauwatosa School District for many years, and I've had friends work in the district. I've known Jean for a long time, since we've done our National Board certification 14 years ago. But I've known about the Challenge course for at least a decade, and that was one reason that drew me toward the district. I observed the class, I talked about the class with friends, other people, Jean among them. So for Jean and Chris to advocate that this course be supplanted by another program, I think there has to be hefty merit in the AP Capstone program for a course that has that value, that's a cornerstone of an education in Wauwatosa. So I do want to say that. One thing that the AP Capstone program does is provide post-secondary credit for students, as any AP course would, but Challenge doesn't. Students can receive an AP Capstone diploma, which is sort of the gold level, the highest level. And if the student gets a 3 in each of the 2 AP Capstone courses, Seminar and Research, and the student takes 4 additional AP courses and gets a 3, qualifies with a 3 on the test for each of those, that student then receives the AP Capstone diploma. A student can also receive an AP Capstone certification, which might be the silver level metaphorically. That is, the student has a score of 3 in each of those courses and doesn't have any other AP tests or courses needed. Frankly, this is attractive. Harvard, Amherst, Purdue, Madison, Marquette, hundreds of colleges and universities are going to accept and give credit for students if they qualify. That's a really wonderful thing, that these kids can get post-secondary credit. That's not our main focus. The main focus is the course and the program, the curriculum itself. This, though, is an additional benefit that currently Challenge doesn't provide. Teacher training, there would be required professional development for, in this case, Chris and Jean at this time. There would be a 5-day training for each teacher for each course. Initially, it would be one course that we would be implementing, so they would be trained for that, a 5-day training over the summer. And then they would each get scoring training throughout the first year as well. So why move from Challenge Seminar if it is, in fact, a cornerstone of a TOSA education to AP Capstone? One is that this new program clarifies and legitimizes our offering to the external world. So if we go outside of Wauwatosa, a university, a visitor, a stakeholder does not necessarily know what challenge is. AP Capstone carries that international, national credibility. AP Capstone offers clear coherence across town. As great as these teachers are, they teach other courses. You heard Chris say he teaches English and social studies. He does a lot of things. Jean does as well. So when they go to their PLCs on a Wednesday, they'll go to their primary class. That's not necessarily challenge. So they might go to freshman English or they might go to U.S. history. There might not be the attention paid to a challenge, and over time, the east and the west side version of the course can drift apart. We can, if I send my students my kids to Tosa East, I have an experience of that and I have an understanding of that, which isn't necessarily the same at West. AP Capstone is a standardized program that would offer that coherence across town. AP Capstone provides a rich stock of resources. Jean has taught Challenge for over 10 years. Chris is new to it this year. They're both great teachers, but Chris is feeling that punch of, he's handed some materials, but he's inventing a lot and he's spinning his wheels and getting a lot of things because he has to create it on the fly in terms of getting it as well, but then also creating it. If Jean leaves East, no one there has been trained to teach Challenge. No one necessarily has the materials. It's an idiosyncratic course, however good it might be. It isn't standardized with that rich stock of resources and materials that are codified like AP Capstone has. AP Capstone also is a credit-bearing program for post-secondary schools as well. Chris and Jean surveyed their students, and they asked them a number of questions. We boiled it down to these three areas. Would the students in Challenge currently, there are 3 sections at West, there are 3 sections at East, that's about 80 students per school. They asked them, would you, in lieu of Challenge, would you take this AP Capstone? Let me explain that to you. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Here's what it's like. Would you take that instead of if we no longer offer Challenge? And 80% of the students said, yes, we would in fact take that. Of the students taking Challenge currently, about 3/4 are taking 4 or more AP courses, or they will take those by the time they graduate, then being they then have that capstone diploma accessible to them. The biggest deterrents to taking an AP class are finding the time, the heavy workload, the competition of that turf war among electives, et cetera, and also teaching to the test, feeling that there's too much material or it's too challenging to take an AP course. The targeted population for AP Capstone is the AP night, when students come to find out about AP along with their parents, the AP program. We're looking at, obviously, having the Challenge students be that targeted population who would be taking the AP Capstone, but we're also looking at actively expanding that population of students who would take AP Capstone. Along with EOS, the Equal Opportunity Schools Initiative in Tosa, we're looking at the long-range plan, and we're looking at how can we, in fact, get students who aren't necessarily represented in these courses into those courses. AP Capstone is one of the few courses that has no prerequisites. So if you take AP Calculus or AP Chemistry, there are prerequisites. There are no prerequisites for students to step into this course. So AP Night might be a possible way to go and get more students who are not necessarily typically represented. Working with the counselors in both schools, working through the advisory programs, which we've already started to do, looking at different academic courses and going in to talk to students about this opportunity, and also going to co-curricular groups. So if we want to have students who are not typically represented, might we go to their co-curricular groups and talk with those kids and tell them about the opportunity. I'm going kind of fast and kind of steamrolling along. Chris, do you want to just take a minute to talk a little bit about the value that you might see in an AP Capstone program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's, for me as a teacher, this AP seminar, AP Capstone, AP seminar and AP research collectively kind of roll a lot of things that I think are valuable as an educator. Particularly the AP seminar program, I think it really has students focusing on something that is interdisciplinary. It's a problem-based research topic. They're working together as a team, and they're really trying to first learn the skills of analyzing and thinking and critically evaluating information, and then taking that information and creating something new and presenting it presenting it in a real world kind of fashion. And I think the AP seminar program outlines in a pretty systematic way a process for taking students from the beginning to the end of that kind of development of teaching them these thinking academic skills. So I think there's kind of a lot happening here, but I think it's very attractive to me. So,
Okay, Jean, did you want to add some of that?
You know, when I reflect on why AP Seminar or AP Capstone versus Challenge Seminar, and Challenge Seminar I'm intimately tied to. I've been working on this program at East for 10 years, and I see the value in it, and we are doing a lot of that interdisciplinary work, but I also know, to speak to the East-West continuity, I think it is super important for our students, and regardless of where they live, to have access to the same opportunities. And through no fault of ours or anyone employed at this time, but when I started teaching this course 10 years ago, I already sensed that there was a great divide, and that was pre-PLCs, because the courses had just evolved in different directions at different schools. And so it is hard to bring things back together. And I do really see the value in the resources and the continuity that is offered through the College Board. I think that can't be undervalued. A lot of the resources I use are based on the original curriculum that was tied to the IB program called the Theory of Knowledge, which really is the capstone course of IB schools. And to receive an IB diploma, you need to have that course. And that's what Challenge Seminar was originally founded on. With that said, as time goes on, I think it's important for our school district to have a capstone course that says this is what we value. These are the skills that will ready you for college, and I see AP Capstone as an avenue to that. In that AP Capstone isn't a content-driven course, but it's really skill-based, and it's drawing on all of the skills our students are learning, or all of the content our students are gaining in all of their courses, whether it's English 9 all the way through AP Calc. And it's calling for that interdisciplinary approach and saying this is what we think all students should be able to do, and this can really establish, I think, say something about our culture in both of our schools in a consistent way.
Currently as well, we have we have 20 AP offerings. They're all disparate, they're splinters. So AP Calc, AP Chem, AP French, we have all those courses. Nothing unifies those. This program could serve to unify those courses so that when the kids take those AP courses, they take AP Capstone and it pulls together that content that Gina's talking about and gives that program coherence as well. So it does the East-West coherence, but it also gives coherence to the AP program. In a sense, for the first time, you could actually create that as a department or a content team, the AP program. In terms of finances, the biggest is the professional development. As I mentioned, there would be professional development for each of the two teachers. It's $1,200 for each per course per teacher, plus the travel and the lodging. Also, there to be full disclosure with technology, they did say that teachers need to have, I forget how they termed it, but they need to have good technology because each teacher would be storing up to 100 kids electronic portfolios. So to have something that could accommodate that, and also something that could accommodate master research, because each student is doing research, but the teachers have to be able to do that research as well, so that the technology would have to be good for the teachers to support that program. In the 2014-15 school year, again, just saying there are 3 sections of Challenge Seminar in each high school, so that's about 160 students currently. How would the effectiveness of that program be determined? Through classroom observations, through programmatic evaluations as well. All AP courses in College Board have to have an audit performed and renewed over time. This would be no exception. We would also have stakeholder surveys for students, for parents, and then we would track the AP scores as well as a form of data. Communication, with whom have we been communicating? One I did not put on here, though, was Curriculum Council. We went there, I don't know, about a week or so ago, and there was very positive reception. People noted that they really liked the interdisciplinary. They really liked the fact that it focused on these college courses, and they also liked the fact that there was college credit available as well. We've been talking with building administration, Mr. Clark, Mr. Hughes, their teams. We've been talking with counselors. We've been talking with various content team teachers within AP and outside of AP, just to make sure. And so then the recommendation is to adopt AP Capstone program made up of the two courses, seminar and research, replacing the Honor Challenge seminar, implementing seminar next year and research the following year.
And I don't know that you said this, but we are the only school district in Wisconsin that is able to bring this proposal to the Board of Education. There are no other schools in Wisconsin that are eligible to start this program in Wisconsin until like the following year. The reason we have the opportunity to bring the proposal forward is because Gene Biebel really strongly advocated with the College Board and was able to convince them that this is a great place for them to be able to start with the program. So
they said no a few times, and then they said yes.
Well, and one of the things that wasn't said is, especially with our EOS and the fact that there isn't a gatekeeper to AP Seminar, I really like the idea that AP Seminar could be open to juniors, and that we really could, with a new initiative like this, really increase our outreach to student population to ensure that all students feel like they have access to this kind of rigor. And I think that is really the main selling point. And I believe that our district is truly in earnest with that goal, especially with our work with EOS.
And the long-range planning, yep, it coincides, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that was one of the sad things, or that's one of the sad considerations about Challenge. And in Challenge class, there are always a handful of students who are like there for a stretch. You know, they're kind of like, you know, there's all these kids who are, you know, kind of rock star students, but then there are several kids who are like, hey, I wanted a challenge. So I saw this class and I decided to take it because it's a challenge.
When that said, someone this year thought it was a ropes course.
Oh dear.
No, this isn't a ropes course.
You don't do that at East?
Sorry.
They have diverse
our whole semester.
the two curricula.
No, but that AP Capstone without a prerequisite course and not locked into content necessarily, it still leaves it open as a course where students could still have that stretch and that experience of taking a challenging course and putting themselves in a situation where they were going to be challenged.
Well, and that makes me think as well, I'm sorry that we're having this conversation, but so if I'm a student that really likes German literature or I like operettas, I can take this course and I can advocate for my desires. I am not taking an AP French or an AP Chemistry. I'm taking an AP learning the skills of college through the medium that I want to explore. So that further opens that accessibility as well. Okay. So that's the proposal. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Muehlfeld?
Thank you. So I have a question on the sequencing of the programming. It seems as though the design is to have the AP seminar course in the junior year and then followed by the research course in the senior year.
Yeah, so you have to take seminar to take research. You can take seminar and stop, but if you want to take research, you have to take seminar to get into research.
And what is the downfall if they just take seminar?
There is no downfall. We talked about that. I think it would be a great experience for a student to take AP seminar. I think that would be a preparatory for college, for that rigor, for the workforce as well. It would be a great experience. It's a standalone course, but together then they form that program. That then a student is eligible for the post-secondary credit.
Right, if they score 3 and so forth. Okay,
Yeah.
because we do have APSE, and that is a lot for juniors already, and a lot of the juniors are taking additional AP courses. Then additionally they could potentially take, I'm all for rigor and wanting them to do that. But the realities are we have another very attractive course for the juniors in APSE, which is also, I think, a very good course along these same lines. So I'm just sensitive a little bit to that, and that they would have the opportunity to take 2 courses, on the research side. So, I wouldn't want that to be a downfall, just because there's a lot of work to it outside of the classroom. So, I mean, it's just, it's a big load. I mean, it really is. I'm just being realistic. I think it can be a very big load, and I would want the students to have the opportunity to take both the seminar and the research and APSE and all of the courses that, that we want them,
And some students might take the seminar as a junior, they might take seminar as a senior as
Right.
well.
But then they wouldn't take research.
The full program, but they would still have a great standalone course, yeah.
Right. And I can definitely see the advantages, and, certainly I think moving in this direction is the way we should go. I just want to be sensitive to that and share that.
Thank you.
Mr. Croner?
Thank you. It's very interesting. I have a couple questions. What would they get college credit for?
They would get college credit if they take the 2 AP courses in Capstone and get a 3 on the test for each of those courses.
So what course in college would they get?
It'd be general ed.
Yeah.
Much like any AP course,
Sure.
like if I was to take AP Lang, oftentimes if I'm going to be an English major in college, AP Lang reverts to an AP general ed credit you end up getting elective credits.
It's like an elective credit.
So, yeah. And one thing, because this is a new program, there isn't a universal rollout of it, they're still starting to see and determine what colleges are saying. Some universities have said that there's automatic admission into honors programs that they offer. The University of Colorado or Colorado State, one of the two, said that it was worth 5 different
courses.
Different courses. I have it written down. It was like 15 credits was the AP Capstone diploma of general ed, of elective credits.
Typically in electives, and they're also through their honor programs. They're giving entree and then elective credits and then honors credits as well. But again, because it's so new, they're mediating that and still figuring that out.
Okay. And you mentioned that the end of course written exam was $139. Is
Yes,
that for each course?
For each of the 2 courses.
So
The student could opt out.
that was one concern I
Yeah.
had. It sounded like we're offering a course with a fee attached to it.
Oh, no. Just like any AP course, they will elect to take the test or not.
But I thought the test was how they got graded.
No, that's how they get credit. They'll get a grade regardless of whether they take the AP test or not.
Like any AP course,
Right.
they still receive a course grade, but for the AP seminar, there are 3 assessments that would be, 2 of which would be scored by the AP seminar teacher, and those would become a part of the course grade. If they're choosing to be a part of the AP seminar and pay the $139, then it would be uploaded to the digital portfolio, and those 2 scores, in addition to the end of the year test, would comprise their score. But someone could take AP seminar, not pay the $139 fee, and still do the other 2 assessments, and just not that final sit alone.
So the
assessment?
one end of course written exam for 40% for AP seminar, that's the one you would pay for?
You actually pay for all 3, because all 3 comprise the one score. However, 2 of them I administer in class, or Chris would. And so if I'm administering it and I'm scoring it, whether a student paid for it or not, I would still have them participate in that assessment. The one they wouldn't participate in is the end of year, and that one happens during all the AP assessment weeks. There are 2 assessment
Middle of
weeks. And so they wouldn't sit for that, and they wouldn't receive a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 from the College Board, but they would still get a grade on their transcript for AP seminar.
Okay, so you only confused me slightly. So students' grade in the course wouldn't depend on the AP exam. They would have
Correct.
every student in the course
There
would have
would be
the-
other
the
components
grade-
to
the
it.
grade- The letter grade would come from something every student would do in the class.
Yeah.
So like U.S. history, if I'm taking AP U.S. history and I decide not to take the test, I'm kind of clipping along in the class, and come May, I just don't show up for the tests, and I still get a grade in the class, but I just don't get the College Board credit. Because I didn't take the test, so I don't have a score, so I don't get the College Board credit. I don't get any elective in college. It
I
kind of
guess
is
I
the
was
same.
confused between the 25 and 35% as part of the grade and not part of the AP credit.
It's a part of the AP
Got it.
score.
Okay.
That's how they comprise the score.
So
Go ahead.
it'd be part of our grading. I mean, if a student was in my class and said, well, I'm not taking this for credit, I mean, I'm hopefully assuming that I could be using the same assessment to assess my students regardless of their participation in the final College Board apparatus, or whatever you want to call it. I
Okay.
don't know. Is that the wrong word? I think it probably is.
So I have a kind of a comment and a more open question for both of you. I sometimes think the diversity that you might have in your courses is good, because you're bringing different things to the courses, and you should do that because you have different backgrounds, different interests, and that sort of thing. And I sometimes view bringing AP into a course as reducing the flexibility in a course. I'm more familiar with the science courses where they have particular programs they have to follow. So why is bringing this in, why would that not reduce the flexibility you have to teach the
So I'm going to butt in, and I'm going to say something before they might jump in. But let me say this. I think there's good diversity, and I think there's bad diversity. I think you're right. I think there should be flexibility, and teachers should have their own imprint and their own desires and interests, modifying or having that flexibility in a class. I do. But I also think that then when teachers across town agree on a curriculum, there should be fidelity to that curriculum. While they talk and mediate it out, I think it's still their curriculum, and they have to honor that. In the AP capstone program, one of the nice things is it's sort of like a vessel. So while they're learning the skills of research and writing and defense and claims and reasoning, they get to pick their topics and fill up that vessel with their interests. The student does that collaboratively, and the class does that.
Talking about the research class?
Both of them.
Both of them.
In both seminar and research. So in Jean's seminar class, she would, in the first couple of weeks, decide with her kids, what 2 or 3 topics will we research for the year? And that could be immigration, it could be water cleanliness, but they will decide that. And then each of them are going to be able to do a ballet or a French lit as well. So there's a lot of that flexibility in this program. That, I think, is a healthy flexibility where they still have the vessel, which is the same. I don't know, you guys want to chime in? Yeah, did I just exhaust it?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
So if I could...
I see, and I'm with you. I value the flexibility, the choices, the very student-directed course that Challenge Seminar is, and I appreciate the seminar style of it, and I see that very much still in place with AP Seminar, in that it's not driving one content. It's not about teaching to a test, but really about promoting a certain set of skills: critical thinking, research, argumentative writing, and good writing. And that, I think, is the cornerstone of good preparation for post-secondary endeavors.
Yeah, I mean, I think the analogy of a vessel is a good one. It kind of is a framework for kind of holding these skills. And 2, I mean, I think it seems to me that the beginning of the class is a lot of teachers and students looking at information, looking at different arguments, looking at different things around a theme. And then as the course progresses, students are working in teams and identifying particular research topics of interest to them. And then the next step is students are identifying their own research topic and kind of going from there. So it's kind of, because there is kind of a framework, but students are, in a way, it's kind of like, it's a bit of the best of both worlds, right? So students can kind of go in multiple directions, so.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Budden?
Thank you for your presentation. Question, just to follow up with what Mrs. Mufeld had said. What do you foresee as the difference? Because I'm not familiar with the, did you say APSI or?
Yes.
That course that juniors are currently able to take, is that correct? To what you're currently proposing?
Well, so all juniors in the all juniors at West and East High School are required to take American Public Policy. And so about 8 or 9 years ago, students started to have a choice. They could either take American Public Policy or they could take American Public Policy Special Emphasis. And so the difference between those two courses is, American Public Policy Special Emphasis is a course that really focuses on constitutional questions, and it's a course that participates in a competition where students are investigating kind of the foundational principles of American government with a special focus on the Constitution. And at this point in the year, this point in November, students are broken up. They're in groups that are identifying particular research topics that are given to them by the Constitutional Rights Foundation. I can't remember the organization that's the We the People organization. And so each team has a particular topic that they're researching, and they're coming up with a response to that, and they're kind of like going in depth on that particular thing. And then they have a competition, and they have a state competition, and a national competition. The regular APP class is something different. It's kind of nuts and bolts of government, but it's also the issue investigation, where students are identifying an issue that a problem in society, where they are researching that problem, identifying a solution to that problem, and ultimately kind of writing about that and then presenting it to the community at our issue fair, which is on June 4th at West High School.
You're putting in the pitch for West first this year?
I am, yeah. They're on 2 different dates, by the way. But so those 2 classes,
So one is more content driven. What you're explaining to me, someone's giving them the topics.
Right.
They're using some of the same skills, but it's not as.
Yeah, it is more, and it's more, the We the People organization, it is kind of a bit more, I don't want to say standardized. So every APSI team, East APSI team and West APSI team, they're getting the same questions to research and address. And each team, of course, is coming up with their own argument, doing their own research, figuring out their own thing when they present. So it is, how does that fit into this class?
Just the difference. I think, the idea that you're describing about research and discussion, and those are all good, but I just wanted to clarify in my own mind the choices that we, get to the point where we offer so many choices. It's, it's great that we have that. I just wanted to clarify in my own mind what the difference would be if I'm a junior and I had to select, if I'm able to take both and fit it in my schedule. And
well, APSI is rooted in the social studies, and it's rooted in the social studies context as well, even specifically more so the Constitution. And that the AP program is a much wider variety of choice for the kids in terms of what they're going to be researching and what the class will research.
And the idea that, I wrote this down, the avenue of this capstone course was skill-based, not content-driven, but skill-based readiness for college, whereas the other ones are definitely, at least they have more of a definitive content flavor.
Yes.
That's the right way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said.
Yep.
So if it's more skill-based, it would seem to me we would be able to attract more students.
Yes.
Because hopefully, we aren't emphasizing a particular discipline.
Right.
The disciplines might be integrated in their research and their development or their conversation, or as you said, help them develop their writing, but it's not necessarily an emphasis in terms of signing them up.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, right now in Challenge, we're working on a project, and students are doing research on blood donations, right, and how blood donations are used, and they're going in all kinds of directions, so it's.
I think it's a huge plus to get cohesiveness between the east and the west side of town. And I know there will be diversions or whatever differences would be depending on instruction, but I think that cohesiveness is a huge plus.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. Feet.
Hi. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. I know that there's been a lot of work that has gone into this, and I say this with respect, but I have to disagree, and I cannot support the proposal that you've made tonight. To me, this is the most recent step in what seems like an unrelenting march towards conformity and standardization. And I think
I'm
that
sorry,
in doing...
could you, I didn't hear the first word you said, toward two things.
I'm not sure what I said, standardization and conformity.
Okay.
And I think that as we continue down this path, we are stomping out everything, well, not everything, but a lot of things that make Wauwatosa schools unique. And I think that in order to do that, there has to be a really compelling reason. And I haven't seen it in the materials. I haven't seen it in the things I looked at at the College Board website. I haven't heard it here tonight. And so I don't mean to be too pedantic about it, but I think because I feel fairly strongly about this, I want to go through the reasons that have been given and my reaction to those, at least a little bit. And I'm sorry, I have to take these off so I can read. The first reason given is that this program that we currently have, the Honors Challenge Seminar, is not the value of that is not known to the outside world. And that may be true, but I think that just because it is a unique program is not a reason to do away with it. People do recognize that this is a valuable class. It is, people ask questions about it. I have to say that I have a student in this class right now, full disclosure, and I have a sophomore who will probably take whatever the offering is next year. But over the years, I cannot tell you how many times I have had parents talk to me about how my student only took this class because it's the only way to get an honors diploma. And it turned out that it was their favorite class. And this prepared them for college more than anything else. And that may well be said about the AP class as well. But there is a value in this class that cannot be overstated. I agree that there needs to be some coherence across town, but I don't think that that is a sufficient reason to throw out the entire class. I think that the fact that there is not more coherence across town is a failure in the district to make sure that there is enough time for those teachers to coordinate. And I'm sure that it's tough being thrown into this without really a written curriculum. But I think that the solution to that is not to throw out the class and take on something else. It's to figure out how to get more symmetry between the two. And I'll tell you, even if it's an AP class, they're not going to be the same class. And that may not be the expectation, but right now I have two students in the same AP class but different sections at the same school, and they're not having the same class. There are going to be differences, and there should be differences. But I do agree that there should be more symmetry. I just don't think that we need to go to the extreme measure of throwing out the entire class in order to achieve that. Providing a rich stock of resources and materials, I'm sure they will, but again, it's the same standardized materials, and there's not the flexibility for the teachers to use other things. I understand that the students will pick their own subjects, they will have some of their own research materials, but I don't think, again, that that's a compelling reason. With regards to the college credit, again, I have a senior. We're going through the college application process. I've spent a lot of time looking at what you get credit for AP classes because my son's going to have 6, I think, by the time he graduates. None of the schools he's applying to will give him any credit for a 3. I know that there are schools out there that do, but I think it does people a disservice to say if you get a 3, you're going to get college credit. You might or you might not. This is such a new program. It just started this year. No one has graduated with one of these yet. And none of the, I looked at only 6. I didn't obviously check every school in the country. But none of the 6 schools I checked to see if you could get credit for this had anything about it. That may change because it is a new program. But as of right now, students, seniors who are taking this class, I can't find anything that tells them that they're actually going to get credit. That may happen down the road. But for me right now, that's not an argument to do this. I agree with, I share Mrs. Muehlfeld's concerns with regards to scheduling. I understand that 80% of the students currently in the class said that they would take it if Challenge Seminar wasn't there, they would take this one. And I think that's because you have high-achieving students who want to challenge themselves, who sign up for this class, and they'll take whatever the hardest class is. But you've now made it 2 years. And in looking at the materials, it does appear that the AP program is largely taking the honors seminar as presented at East and splitting it into 2 years. So now you have these high-achieving students who are trying to take all these classes. Now they have to use 2 electives on essentially what is now 1 class. And again, I have a junior who's going in, I'm sorry, a sophomore who'll go into a junior year, and I don't mean to personalize this, but looking at her schedule, if this would go through, it's brutal. And I do think it's going to have an effect on APSE. I think people are going to have to choose. And I don't know that that's a good thing. So again, I realize that this is done with all the best intentions. I do realize that there are problems between the courses as presented at East and West right now. But I don't think that we need to take the extreme step of doing away with the capstone unique program that we have here in Wauwatosa and go the standardized route of AP. And that's my position.
May I respond to one of your points?
Sure.
This summer, the school board decided to make an honors diploma challenge or one AP course. With that decision, the rigor of Challenge Seminar is widely known, and what you said is troubling to me because one of the reasons students took it was because of the honors requirement, and they never would have taken it, nor would they have received the benefits of the course. So when you made that decision, my fear is that that Challenge Seminar is in jeopardy, because eventually enrollment in this course will drop. Because if I want an honors diploma, I have to take AP Psych, I have to take AP Bio, a wide range of courses, all that have very different skill sets. And AP courses are distinctly different than Challenge Seminar. And I don't know how to maintain the rigor and the skill set that Challenge Seminar promotes in light of the board change.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Talk about that more, please.
What Gina's referring to is this summer, the board changed the policy.
Right.
And she can't predict, Chris can't predict, we can't predict what the enrollment will be like. But even in Ms. Fee's comment that students felt compelled to take it because their parents said they had to take it for an honors diploma, that entryway no longer exists. So Jean's first concern was, whatever gets them in, that carrot, isn't that important once they get in the course. What's important is the course. But she was concerned, and other people are concerned, that the enrollment might not be there in subsequent years, given that now I can take AP Psych, AP French. So for that reason, AP Capstone then is a way of codifying Challenge because they're so similar in what they offer. So that was an attempt then to protect that cornerstone of a Tosa education.
Okay, I guess I'm confused. You always needed Challenge for an honors diploma.
It was the only way to get it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now
with
you
that,
don't.
with a GPA, certain
Right, but
GPA.
right.
No, you don't.
And now you don't.
Okay,
Now
I
you
thought
can-
we just added the requirement. And, you know, I know we talked about so many different things.
It's one
I'm looking it up
AP
here.
or
Okay.
Challenge.
It's either Challenge or any AP course.
And if you look at the number of students who take
Okay.
one
Now,
AP
okay.
course,
Yeah, we talked about a lot of different,
Right.
a lot of different options
one
this
we
summer.
settled on
But
was-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mrs.
Okay.
Smith.
Can I just ask a question and follow up to that? So you did bring up the policy of the honors diploma, which we would obviously have to change some language. You know, if we pursued this proposal. It wouldn't be honors challenge, it would be AP capstone. I don't know what the language would be, but it would be a chance for us to revisit that policy again. Jean and Chris, you spent a lot of time on this, and I mean, I'm sensing that you think this is a direction that we should go in. You're here tonight and you're advocating that, and I don't want you to waver, you know, if that's what you want to do.
I don't think we're here tonight because of the honors diploma policy. I mean, certainly there are implications for that policy. We talked about the time that that policy was passed. We're here tonight because we have an opportunity, and we have an opportunity for a course that can get us some of the things that we did talk about. And it does allow for the same kind of learning experiences that a student would have in Honors Challenge. Whether or not a student decides to take advantage of it being an advanced placement course would be up to them. Like all courses, I mean, we don't know, as far as competing with ABSE, we don't know if the same students that would choose ABSE might choose this course. We don't know that. So we'd be making an assumption about some of those choices. So I think that the enthusiasm from the course has a lot to do with what we learned about what the course is. It's not about other extraneous things. So I do hope that we keep our enthusiasm there and not be thinking that it relates to some policy that was previously passed.
Sorry, just follow
Okay,
up.
go ahead.
I didn't mean for it to go in that direction. I apologize for that. What I meant was to talk about the actual happenings of what a student will choose and why. And I think, you know, that's realistic, what Jean brought forward, and, you know, what Chris is saying too, and probably what Mrs. B is saying. So we just want to make sure that we understand all the sensitivities. We want to create, you know, the best courses we can for the students and go forward. You know, that's why we're here having the discussion.
I mean, courses have impacts, right? Offering courses, and students make choices. I mean, that was the case with ABSE, right? When ABSE was introduced, many of those students no longer took APP, right? So if I have 30 students in my APP class, those top 5 kids who had to apply to get in are now in ABSE. And so all of a sudden, the kind of skill level of my regular ed APP class drops a couple notches, right? Because all those kids are in ABSE. And so I've definitely seen that over the years too. So
the other thing, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. The other thing is there's no need to foresee that we roll out AP seminar and research exactly as the College Board envisions us doing that. It could be that AP seminar is truly just Challenge Seminar renamed. And the students do receive an added benefit of having an AP moniker on their transcript, because whether they get college credit or not, AP is definitely looked at as more rigor in colleges in their vetting process of transcripts. And so if AP Seminar becomes the course that mostly seniors and some juniors elect to take,
so be it.
So be it. And or there may be some that choose to take both pathways. But I do see one of the things that drew me to this is that the learning targets, the skill set of AP Seminar is very closely related to Challenge Seminar. And I don't see Challenge Seminar going away. I see it being renamed. And if it grows to AP Capstone, okay. I mean, I'm not on any College Board payroll. I want my son and daughter to take Challenge Seminar when they come here, and if it's called AP Seminar then, and hopefully it's not taught by me because they would not be good in my class, that's even better. And so really that's where my mind is.
Mr. Croner.
Thank you. I'm glad we're having this discussion. I know for my children, this challenge course and a couple other courses that taught the critical thinking skills and how to have intelligent debates were probably some of the most valuable courses they took in high school. So the fact that we're discussing those kinds of courses I think is good. And I know that moving from challenge to the AP seminar will be no change in quality. I'm pretty convinced of that. One thing that did occur to me after Mrs. Fee spoke was that what we might need to do is sit down and talk about how we're going to define honors and if we're also going to have AP Capstone Diploma and AP Capstone Certification. So those are three different kind of honors categories. And so maybe clarifying, pick one or pick a designation for an honors diploma and make it standard and not have maybe so many different categories might help students as they pick courses.
I just have to say that the AP capstone is really college board awarded. It wouldn't be school district awarded. It's given through college board.
Right.
It would. I guess your question might be like, do we want to make it part of our honors diploma? But it's given through college board. It's not a Wauwatosa recognition.
That, but it's not dissimilar from our honors in that it requires a certain number of AP courses.
Right.
And
yeah.
To get it. So we might alleviate some confusion and help students pick courses if we make that a little less complicated. Maybe.
Lots to think about. I hate it when we start getting into this honors diploma and AP capstone diploma and all of the bells and whistles, that kids, I'd like to keep talking about the content and the opportunities.
Right.
And what I hear is, well, first of all, I think, and this is an observation, that the challenge course, the benefits of that to most people has been anecdotal, right? Because it's a homegrown Wauwatosa. So when you have kids go off to college and say, I'm doing way better than I would have if I hadn't taken challenge, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Did they go to college without without challenge? So they don't know that. So my first thought was, okay, so by making it part of this capstone program, you do get some measurability, some accountability, some of the weight, and I guess I wouldn't expect the content to change a lot other than I'm assuming you would get more support for the different academic areas that the kids would choose. I gotta move this, I talk with my hands. So those are all the things I'm thinking about. I also get very concerned about overload for kids. And now I'm back to where I started. Are they taking on too much because they're really interested in learning and they really want to, or do they want the little check mark, next to their diploma or whatever? And yeah, we're going to have to revisit our policy because right now it says for the Wauwatosa honors diploma, you have to do challenge. So, and yeah, okay, right. So yeah, we're going to have to revisit that no matter what. So this has been a really helpful conversation in many ways. There really is a lot of different things to think about. I don't know. At this point, I would support this. To give some recognition to the work you do in Challenge, even though it's going to have a different name.
One thing that's clear to me is that when Jean even references that there was the IB program that she essentially stole and created as Challenge, and then it was Challenge, and Challenge morphed, and there's East and there's West, and now there's AP Capstone. So that whatever that is that we offer we're still going to offer it, and we have a really great opportunity in that now it's coincidentally encoded as AP Capstone.
Yeah.
So when I have somebody who's worked so long and so hard in the district on Challenge, and somebody who's new and looking at it for the first time, and they're both completely energetic and saying, this program has 100% worth for us, I have to listen to them and look at that program, and I do see that value myself.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask one other
Yeah,
question,
go
just
ahead.
quickly? Something you said just triggered for me. Am I correct that the grade in this class will be determined by the AP blind scores?
No.
Okay.
That's only if they take the test.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said there's 3 assessments in the class. Those 3 assessments are not the grade.
Those 3 assessments are part of the class. Those 3 assessments comprise the AP score.
Okay.
Not
You double
necessarily the core, not necessarily the grade in the course.
Okay.
In the first
so
part-
my concern is our students should be graded by our teachers,
Yes.
not by the AP,
And they will.
whatever the AP
Yes.
thinks that they're supposed to write. Our teachers
Correct.
should be grading our students. That was my concern.
And that's accurate.
Yeah, just like an AP US history class, right?
Right,
I'm giving a
right.
grade, and then they go
What-
take the test,
and
and if
they-
they get a 5, they get a 5. If they
Right.
get a 1, they get a 1.
Got it. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
I guess so.
Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any community comment on either the revisions to open enrollment or the AP Capstone program? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Anything that did not appear in tonight's agenda? Seeing none, thank you. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the regular school board meeting then and reconvene into a board in-service regarding budgetary prioritization. As the in-service is a working session of the board, no public comment will be entertained at this meeting.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
And Dr. Ertl, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Mrs. Fee?
Yes.
Mr. Croner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mrs. Randall?
Yes. So we are adjourned. We are meeting right here, so if we want to take a few minutes, stretch and wait for Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, I saw him pop his head in the door.
Oh,
I thought he was
okay.
going to come in, but he's here somewhere.
Okay. So with my chair, do you want to go?